Psychology of female emotional immaturity.
Immaturity is a word we often hear tossed around when someone behaves irresponsibly, impulsively, or emotionally out of control. But when it comes to understanding female immaturity, there's so much more beneath the surface. It's not just about acting childish or being selfish, it's about a deeper psychological process that impacts how women develop emotionally, socially, and even professionally. In a world that demands women to juggle so many roles, caregiver, partner, friend, and professional, it can sometimes feel like emotional maturity is an unreachable goal. But what if we stopped seeing immaturity as a flaw or a character defect and started viewing it as a normal, albeit complex, stage of development? After all, emotional maturity doesn't come overnight. It's shaped by the way we experience and process our childhood, the relationships we form, the expectations placed on us, and even the societal pressures we often don't realize we're carrying. For many women, emotional growth is delayed or hindered because of these external forces, whether it's unresolved childhood trauma, a lack of emotional support, or the constant comparison to an idealized image of womanhood. These factors can result in behaviors that we might label as immature, but are actually coping mechanisms or signs of unprocessed emotional pain. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the psychology of female immaturity, exploring how women's emotional worlds develop and why immaturity sometimes becomes a roadblock rather than a stepping stone. From the early attachment styles we form as children to the way our society shapes our emotional expectations, we'll explore the many layers that contribute to this complex issue. We'll also discuss why it's essential to understand and acknowledge these struggles instead of simply labeling them as childish or immature. By better understanding the roots of immaturity, we can open up a path to emotional healing and growth, offering women a chance to break free from old patterns and unlock their full potential. So, whether you're navigating your own emotional journey or just curious about the psychological forces at play, let's take this journey together. Trust me, what we're about to uncover will not only help you understand others better but also give you the tools to grow emotionally stronger, no matter where you're starting from. Section 1. What is immaturity? When we hear the word immaturity, what usually comes to mind are the obvious signs: temper tantrums, stubbornness, emotional outbursts, or acting without considering consequences. We tend to think of immaturity as a simple lack of responsibility or self-control. However, in the realm of psychology, immaturity is far more intricate. It's not just about the actions or behaviors we exhibit, it's about the way we process emotions, how we handle challenges, and how we navigate our relationships with others. At its core, immaturity refers to the emotional and psychological underdevelopment in certain areas of life. It manifests when someone has difficulty managing their emotions, making decisions, or taking accountability for their actions. This can be seen in both children and adults. While it's more expected in childhood, since emotional and cognitive development is still unfolding, it becomes more problematic in adulthood when the same behaviors persist. For women, emotional immaturity can look different than what you might expect in men or even in other people. Society often expects women to be more emotionally intuitive, nurturing, and in tune with others. But when those expectations are unmet, it can appear as if a woman is immature, when in fact, she may be dealing with a lack of emotional maturity that hasn't been properly developed due to a variety of factors. There's a significant difference between immaturity as a natural phase of growth and immaturity as a sign of psychological hindrance. The former can be a healthy part of learning how to cope with life's challenges. The latter can point to deeper unresolved issues or developmental delays. Think of it like this: emotional maturity is a journey, not a destination. Some of us may take longer to get there, and others might face detours along the way. What's important is recognizing that immaturity in adults is often a symptom of something more complicated, whether it's a lack of emotional tools, an unhealthy environment, or a painful past that hasn't been fully processed. The fact that immaturity is often gendered adds another layer of complexity. While everyone experiences emotional setbacks and growing pains, women are frequently held to higher emotional standards, and when they don't meet those expectations, it's often dismissed as immaturity. This is why understanding what immaturity truly means from a psychological standpoint is crucial. It allows us to unpack the factors that prevent emotional growth, so we can begin the process of healing and maturing. Section 2: Emotional Development and Female Immaturity. So, what drives emotional immaturity in women? To understand this, we have to dive into emotional development itself, specifically how it unfolds in women over time. Emotional development is about how we learn to understand, express, and regulate our emotions. It's about how we handle stress, deal with conflict, and relate to others. For most people, emotional development is something that happens gradually, starting in childhood and continuing through adolescence and into adulthood. But the process isn't always linear, and certain life experiences can derail or delay emotional growth. One of the most critical pieces of emotional development is emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage both our own emotions and the emotions of others. Women, in particular, are often socialized to value emotional expression. From a young age, girls are encouraged to be more empathetic and nurturing, traits that are often seen as signs of emotional maturity. However, while these qualities can help in some areas, they can also create a false sense of maturity when they are not accompanied by emotional regulation skills. Emotional immaturity in women often shows up in ways that are directly tied to their emotional intelligence, or, more accurately, the lack of it. Without healthy emotional regulation, women might react impulsively to situations or allow their feelings to dictate their actions without thinking them through. For example, they might engage in passive-aggressive behavior instead of confronting issues head-on, or they might overreact to minor setbacks because they have trouble managing stress. In the absence of emotional regulation skills, it's easy to fall into cycles of drama or unhealthy relational dynamics. Another major factor that contributes to immaturity is the influence of attachment theory, which helps explain the different ways individuals connect with others emotionally. Attachment theory suggests that the early relationships we form with caregivers, especially our parents, play a huge role in shaping how we approach relationships throughout our lives. Women who grew up in unstable, inconsistent, or emotionally neglectful environments may struggle with emotional maturity later on. These women might have developed insecure attachment styles, such as anxious or avoidant, that affect how they relate to others in adulthood. For instance, women with an anxious attachment style often feel an overwhelming need for reassurance and approval from others, particularly in romantic relationships. This can manifest as clinginess or emotional dependence, both of which are signs of emotional immaturity. They may struggle with setting boundaries, expressing their needs in healthy ways, or feeling secure without constant validation from others. Similarly, women with avoidant attachment styles might avoid emotional closeness altogether, pushing people away when things get too intimate or vulnerable. This can make it difficult for them to form deep, emotionally fulfilling relationships. Additionally, emotional immaturity can stem from coping mechanisms that women develop to deal with trauma or stress. These coping strategies might include denial, suppression, or even passive behavior that prevents them from fully engaging with their emotions. These behaviors can appear immature because they often involve avoidance rather than actively working through emotional challenges. In the context of society, many women face conflicting messages that further hinder their emotional growth. They're often taught to put the needs of others before their own, to be people pleasers, and to suppress their emotions for the sake of harmony. This can lead to a disconnect between what they feel and how they express those feelings. If emotional expression is limited or controlled, it can lead to emotional stunting, where growth becomes stifled because women aren't allowed or encouraged to experience the full range of emotions in a healthy way. Section 3: Psychological Theories and Immaturity. When it comes to understanding emotional immaturity, we can't overlook the psychological theories that offer valuable insights into how and why some people, especially women, may struggle to mature emotionally. These theories not only help explain the developmental process, but also shine a light on how past experiences shape current behavior. Let's look at some of the most influential theories that contribute to our understanding of emotional maturity and immaturity, especially in women. One of the most well-known frameworks for understanding emotional development is Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages of development. Erikson's theory posits that individuals go through 8 stages of development, each with a specific conflict that must be resolved for psychological growth to occur. For women, several stages are particularly relevant. For example, during adolescence, the 5th stage, the central challenge is the development of identity versus role confusion. This period is crucial because it shapes how young women view themselves and their place in the world. If a woman doesn't resolve this conflict effectively, she may struggle with a fragmented sense of self, leading to emotional immaturity in adulthood. Without a strong sense of identity, it becomes difficult to make mature, independent decisions or form stable relationships. Erikson's intimacy versus isolation stage, young adulthood, is also key in understanding female immaturity. During this stage, individuals are challenged to form deep, meaningful relationships, particularly in romantic or close friendships. For women who didn't resolve earlier stages successfully, emotional maturity in relationships may be hindered. An inability to connect deeply with others can manifest as emotional immaturity, whether that's through a fear of intimacy, emotional withdrawal, or even avoidance of vulnerability. Beyond Erikson, attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, is another vital framework. Attachment theory suggests that the bonds we form in early childhood, especially with our primary caregivers, affect how we relate to others as adults. Women who experienced inconsistent, neglectful, or overly controlling relationships with their caregivers may develop insecure attachment styles. These attachment styles can heavily influence their emotional maturity. For instance, anxious attachment often results in fear of abandonment, seeking validation from others, and difficulty establishing healthy boundaries. On the other hand, avoidant attachment might result in emotional distance, difficulty trusting others, and a lack of emotional expression. These attachment patterns don't just disappear when a woman reaches adulthood. They continue to influence how she interacts with romantic partners, friends, family members, and even colleagues. Anxiously attached women, for example, may act immaturely in relationships by becoming overly dependent, seeking constant reassurance, or even manipulating others to meet their emotional needs. Avoidant women might show emotional immaturity by shutting others out, creating emotional distance, or acting indifferently when they actually need connection the most. Another essential psychological perspective is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which emphasizes self-actualization as the ultimate goal of human development. According to Maslow, emotional maturity is reached when individuals satisfy their basic needs, physiological, safety, and belonging, before progressing to higher-order needs like esteem and self-actualization. For women who have faced early neglect, trauma, or a lack of safety, it can be challenging to move past those lower levels of the hierarchy. Emotional immaturity may arise when women are still preoccupied with unmet needs, such as a lack of emotional security or affirmation, rather than focusing on personal growth and self-actualization. Without feeling stable or whole, it becomes difficult to make mature decisions or take on personal responsibility. Finally, cognitive development theories, particularly those of Jean Piaget, offer insight into how we cognitively process and solve problems. Piaget's theory of stages suggests that as children mature, they move from concrete thinking to more abstract and complex problem solving. While his theory primarily focuses on children, it's important to note that women who haven't fully developed these cognitive abilities, either due to lack of supportive environments or unresolved emotional issues, may have trouble understanding and dealing with complex adult challenges. This cognitive immaturity can manifest in poor decision-making, impulsivity, or even an inability to understand the consequences of actions, which are all signs of emotional immaturity. Together, these theories help us understand that emotional maturity doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a delicate balance of developmental stages, attachment patterns, cognitive growth, and societal expectations. Immaturity, therefore, is not a simple personality flaw. It's often the result of unresolved conflicts or experiences from earlier stages of life. Section 4: Immaturity in Relationships and Social Dynamics. Emotional immaturity doesn't just affect how we handle our own emotions, it significantly impacts the way we relate to others, especially in intimate or close relationships. For many women, emotional immaturity can manifest most clearly in how they navigate romantic relationships, friendships, and even family dynamics. Understanding how immaturity shows up in these social contexts is crucial for recognizing unhealthy patterns and learning how to break free from them. In romantic relationships, one of the most common ways that emotional immaturity presents itself is through emotional dependency. For women who have not fully developed emotional regulation skills or healthy coping mechanisms, their sense of self-worth can become heavily reliant on their partner's validation. This dependency often stems from unresolved attachment issues in childhood. For example, a woman with an anxious attachment style might constantly seek reassurance from her partner, needing frequent affirmation of love and security. She may interpret minor signs of disinterest as rejection, leading to emotional outbursts, anxiety, or clinginess, behaviors that are often seen as immature or childish. In extreme cases, emotional dependency can turn into love addiction, where a woman becomes obsessed with her relationship to the point where her identity and emotional well-being are solely tied to her partner's approval. On the opposite end of the spectrum, avoidant attachment can create a different form of immaturity in relationships. Women with avoidant attachment styles may pull away emotionally from their partners when intimacy deepens, fearing vulnerability and emotional connection. This avoidance can manifest as emotional distance, reluctance to open up, or even outright neglect. At first glance, this might appear as emotional maturity, being strong or independent. However, it's actually a defense mechanism that prevents them from developing deeper emotional connections. Avoidant women may also push others away in friendships and family relationships, avoiding conflict or difficult conversations that are necessary for growth and understanding. Another common manifestation of immaturity in relationships is poor conflict resolution. Emotional immaturity often leads to an inability to handle disagreement or tension in a healthy way. Women who haven't developed strong emotional regulation skills might resort to tactics like passive-aggressive behavior or stonewalling to avoid dealing with conflict. Rather than expressing their feelings directly, they may internalize frustration or anger and express it in subtle, indirect ways, like giving the silent treatment or making sarcastic remarks. These behaviors are not only ineffective in resolving conflict, but they also prevent emotional growth and intimacy in relationships. Friendships can also be affected by emotional immaturity. In some cases, women may engage in competitive or gossipy behavior, driven by insecurities or unmet emotional needs. They may find it difficult to celebrate the success of others, resorting to jealousy or rivalry instead of fostering supportive connections. These behaviors can stem from unresolved childhood issues like feeling overlooked or undervalued, which leads to a deep-seated fear of being unimportant in adult relationships. As a result, the relationships they form may lack depth, trust, and mutual respect, making it difficult for them to connect in emotionally fulfilling ways. Family dynamics are another key area where emotional immaturity can be seen. Women who were raised in dysfunctional family environments or who did not receive sufficient emotional validation in their early years may continue to play out old patterns in adulthood. For example, they might find themselves in perpetual conflict with family members, unable to express their feelings in a healthy way. Alternatively, they may slip into familiar roles, like being the peacemaker or the caretaker, which might prevent them from establishing boundaries or asserting themselves. In all these scenarios, immaturity often comes down to a lack of self-awareness. Women who struggle with emotional growth may have difficulty recognizing their own emotions or understanding the impact their behavior has on others. This lack of insight can cause them to make impulsive decisions, act out in emotionally immature ways, or form unhealthy relationship patterns that further delay their emotional maturity. By understanding how immaturity plays out in relationships, it becomes easier to pinpoint the areas that need healing and growth. Recognizing these behaviors is the first step toward creating healthier, more emotionally mature connections with others. Section 5: Overcoming Female Immaturity: Practical Steps Toward Growth. While understanding the psychological theories and causes of female immaturity is essential, the ultimate goal is to break free from those patterns and foster emotional maturity. The good news is that emotional immaturity is not a permanent state, it's something that can be worked through and transcended with time, awareness, and effort. In this section, we'll explore some practical steps and tools that can help women overcome immaturity and develop emotional maturity in all areas of life. The first step in overcoming immaturity is developing self-awareness. Emotional immaturity often stems from a lack of insight into one's own emotional world. By engaging in self-reflection, women can begin to understand their triggers, behaviors, and the underlying emotions that drive them. Keeping a journal, practicing mindfulness, or simply taking time to pause and reflect during emotionally charged situations can help women gain a clearer understanding of their emotional responses. One of the most effective ways to address deep-seated emotional immaturity is through therapy. A licensed therapist can provide a safe space to explore the root causes of immaturity, such as childhood trauma, attachment issues, or unresolved emotional conflicts. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, and emotionally focused therapy, EFT, are all therapeutic approaches that can help women gain tools for emotional regulation, improve their communication skills, and break unhealthy emotional patterns. Therapy also offers a place to heal from past wounds, helping women create healthier, more mature relationships with themselves and others. Learning to manage one's emotions effectively is a critical part of emotional maturity. Emotional regulation involves being able to recognize your emotions, understand where they come from, and control your reactions in a way that aligns with your long-term values. Simple practices such as deep breathing, meditation, and progressive muscle relaxation can help reduce emotional intensity in the moment, allowing women to pause before reacting impulsively. Women can also learn techniques for handling difficult emotions, such as self-soothing or using positive self-talk to calm anxiety and frustration. By becoming more emotionally aware and practiced in self-regulation, women can avoid the knee-jerk emotional reactions that characterize immaturity, such as outbursts or withdrawing from relationships. As we discussed earlier, attachment theory plays a major role in emotional maturity. If a woman has an insecure attachment style, it's possible to work toward a more secure style through conscious effort and therapeutic support. Women with anxious attachment can work on becoming more independent emotionally, while those with avoidant attachment can practice becoming more vulnerable and open with others. A key part of emotional maturity is knowing who you are and feeling secure in your own identity. Many women who struggle with immaturity do so because they have not fully developed a strong sense of self. This often happens when self-worth is dependent on external factors like other people's opinions or societal expectations. To combat this, women can engage in self-discovery through creative outlets, hobbies, or simply exploring what makes them feel fulfilled outside of relationships and work. Building self-esteem, setting personal goals, and learning to value your own opinions and desires are essential steps in forming a stable, mature identity. This sense of self-assurance allows women to make mature decisions, set boundaries, and navigate life's challenges with more resilience. It's not just about changing yourself, it's also about surrounding yourself with the right people. Building a support system of emotionally mature individuals who offer healthy support, respect, and accountability is crucial. Women who struggle with emotional immaturity may sometimes attract or remain in toxic relationships, whether it's romantic partners, friends, or family members. Learning to identify unhealthy dynamics and create boundaries is an essential step toward fostering emotional maturity. Relationships should be a source of mutual support, growth, and emotional safety, not drama, manipulation, or emotional dependence. Emotional growth takes time. It's not an overnight transformation, and there will undoubtedly be setbacks along the way. A key aspect of overcoming immaturity is learning to be patient with yourself. Women often feel pressure to have it all together quickly, but maturity is a gradual process that requires consistency, persistence, and self-compassion. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and patience that you would offer a close friend. It's about acknowledging that growth is a process and allowing yourself to make mistakes without harsh judgment. This kind of inner kindness can be incredibly freeing and supportive, especially when working through difficult emotions or healing from past trauma. Conclusion: embracing the journey to emotional maturity. The path to emotional maturity isn't always easy, and for many women, it can be a long and winding road. But understanding the psychology behind immaturity, recognizing the patterns that keep us stuck, and taking active steps to foster emotional growth is incredibly empowering. Maturity isn't a destination, it's a continuous journey of self-awareness, healing, and growth. By embracing the process, seeking help when needed, and practicing patience, women can break free from the constraints of immaturity and begin to live more emotionally fulfilling and authentic lives. And this journey isn't just about fixing flaws or reaching some idealized version of maturity. It's about accepting ourselves as we are, recognizing our struggles, understanding our emotional needs, and striving to become the best version of ourselves at our own pace. To every woman out there who feels like they are still figuring things out, remember that emotional growth is not a race. It's okay to not have all the answers right now. It's okay to make mistakes and learn from them. With dedication, self-awareness, and the willingness to grow, you can evolve into the emotionally mature woman you are capable of becoming. In the end, overcoming immaturity isn't about perfection, it's about progress. And as long as you keep moving forward, no matter how small the steps, you are on the right track. Embrace your journey, trust the process, and most importantly, be kind to yourself along the way.